If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hello, and welcome to Talk the Block, the show where we talk about the hit HGTV show, Rock the Block. I'm Amy, and I am here, as always, with my very intelligent co-host, Steven.
Wow. Woohoo. I think we've reached the pinnacle now. I don't want to do any more shows. It's all downhill from here.
Well, I've been teaching high school, so my bar, never mind.
You give out praise regardless of the effort.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I guess that's
hey,
par for the course.
So anyway, what did you think about this week's episode, Stephen? Entertaining, not entertaining?
Yeah, it was entertaining from the standpoint of trying to figure out where did these people get all this stuff that supposedly they didn't know they were going to have to do, right? So from that standpoint, it's like, okay, you've kind of somewhat think through that they knew they were going to have to design this space, and so they probably had ideas and probably had stuff already laid out and purchased that they were going to do anyway, but they didn't necessarily know it was going to be a 48-hour challenge.
Yeah, I think the 48-hour challenge, I think a lot of this stuff on the show is a little bit made for TV. We've talked about this. We think they do the design and order stuff ahead of the week. Yeah. But this 48-hour challenge, I really do think they have to pull together the space in 48 hours. And they all looked pretty exhausted. I didn't think Tristan was going to get off that spa Chase Lounge at the end.
Yeah, I don't know when the clock starts. I don't think it started when they showed it on the show because they were just meandering over to their houses. And I don't know that they necessarily are allowed to work all night long. So whether or not it's a continuous 48 hours or not, I'm not exactly sure. I don't think that it's a coincidence that Jordan was not here this week. I think that when they were looking at the planning and the scheduling and realized that Jordan had a conflict, that they intentionally made this week the 48-hour challenge.
You don't think it was just Jordan calling Christine on the spur of the moment and she was able to come out and help? You didn't buy into that whole little charade?
No.
Well, anyway, I would say that, we should probably start at the beginning here. So
It's a very good place to start.
Oh, all right. So they announced this challenge by doing one of those fun little games that they always do during the show. And it was basically a version of Plinko, where they put a disc into a board that had a bunch of pegs on it, and whatever slot you ended up on the bottom was what crate you ended up getting.
Right. Yep.
And the crates had different themes. There was the homework theme, which I note was called homework, but was not specifically kids' homework. It could have been kids or adult, even though it was called homework. So I think Allison and Michelle suffered a little bit by that name homework because people didn't think their space was kiddie enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The second crate was the kids' playroom. The third crate was wellness or relaxation. And the final crate was gaming or tech, which was anathema to these people. You would think they had never touched a computer. They had never touched a PlayStation. They were all like, oh, no, we can't have tech in our house. Our house has a cowboy theme.
Yeah, like cowboys don't know tech. I mean, but, how can it be Utah where it's the capital,
social influencer capital of the world,
but nobody knows how to use tech.
Nobody knows tech.
No, that's smoke signal influencing. And I was doing some research on this show, I was trying to go back and figure out where.
Wait a minute, you did research? That sounds like this is a professional podcast, Stephen.
No, I just a little bored. And I had to laugh because one of the first comments I saw was, "Oh, and here are these containers full of a bunch of crap," which is what it looked like. And then they've got this sign up that says, "Oh, each container has $25,000 worth of stuff in it." And if that's true, there was a gold bar or two hidden in a couple of these containers because it really did look like crap. And I thought, I'm not sure. I wanted to actually pay attention to see if they actually used it because there was kind of an interesting like bar stool chair in one of the containers. I don't think I saw that in any of the rooms. So I don't know about these containers and how all that played out. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you had to use everything. I think it was there. He said it was to use in your space or for inspiration.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, it inspired me to not want to use it. Although I do think that the playroom, they did, there was a couple of like dust collecting type toys that I saw in the container that did wind up in the space. Yeah, so I think they did use some of that. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, all of this was provided. It wasn't coming out of their budget. So my assumption is that everything they did this week was not hitting their budget, and their budgets are still whatever they were left with after the main suite challenge. Is that your assumption?
That's what they said because they didn't show up anybody's budget, and they even said that it was free, and I assume that even though they had stuff that they used that was not in the container, that doesn't come out of their budget either. So it's kind of a nice way to put money back into these people's budget, which sure Allison and Michelle sure need that. That's
really need, yeah.
Boy. Yeah.
So there were two other surprises besides the containers and the Plinko game. They were to finish their staircase and the wall behind the staircase this week that was adjacent to this bonus room. And then they were going to be judges of each other's rooms.
Yeah, right. Judging each other's room. Yeah.
Now, this worried me at first because of the team aspect of that like if you're a veteran, you would give max points to the veteran team so that you could get some of the money and vice versa. Well, I mean, I would. But it turns out that whoever won got the whole 4,500. So that incentive to kind of help your team win so that you could get part of it wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, Stephen, I'd like your opinion on this. Do you think there was any gamemanship in the judging? Like, do you think they were like, hey, we're going to give the extra money to the team that we feel is the least of a threat or something like that?
It's an interesting take, but I have a different take on this. I think that it was. I don't know what people voted for or whatnot, but I think I predicted this last week that Tristan and Kamohai would win this week because they haven't won yet. And what do you know? They won. I just think that I think they were going to win unless they set their house on fire.
Okay, so I don't know about that, and I don't know if there was really gamemanship on it either. It seemed
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting how you could do it, but I don't know that they would. I don't know. I don't know. Kind of a weird score at the end. What, 25.4?
Yeah. The only thing I was thinking is I felt like all the teams were really harsh on Michelle and Allison. This color makes me vomit, and other such comments were made. And I wonder if it's because they know they're already high on their budget and they don't want to give them an extra money, or whether they really did think the color made them vomit. I'm not really, that just kind of tweaks something in my head.
Yeah. Now, you might have a point from that standpoint that the teams might have not wanted to give Allison and Michelle as much credit as they maybe would have otherwise, because they are trying to make sure that they don't get any more money to come up with some surprise in the future, since they have kind of blown their budget the first week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, maybe some of that. I don't think they were going to win anyway.
Yeah,
they didn't win in my book.
Okay. Well, let's pause for a minute, and then we'll find out, Stephen, who won in your book. We'll be right back.
Wow. That much, huh? Really? Wow, I didn't know that you didn't like them so much. Huh?
Hey, we're back on.
We're
back on. Stephen.
Hey, welcome to Talk the Block.
Okay. All right. So who do you want to start with? How about, would you want to go ahead and start with Team Aloha?
Why not? They won, so let's pick on them first.
Okay. Well,
gave it away early. Didn't even make the 10-minute mark.
Had the playroom. And they decided that they were going to make it in the theme of their kids. One of their kids is apparently very active, and one is a little bit more artsy crafty. So they wanted to make sure that there was an active area like a rock climbing wall and other such things, as well as like arts and craft spaces. And they ended up doing a chalk wall in one corner so the kids could write on the wall. And they had a sort of a hidden playhouse tunnel type of thing that was shaped like mountains. So that's a little bit about their playroom. Their stairwell, they did glass railing, and they did this giant wall of plants. So yeah. I think I'd like to start, Stephen, by getting your point of view on the giant wall of plants.
So I guess just kind of backing up a little bit, they did get the first drop. They got the first drop on Rock the Drop, and they said that that's what they wanted. So it kind of looked like the Plinko was going to fly off the board, but it did manage to lie. They went first, and they got the room they wanted. So that was good for them.
Good.
Yeah. The stairwell was kind of interesting because some of the teams talked about how they were doing, the flooring, and other teams didn't. You kind of missed part of that, so it was kind of hard to get a sense completely of what they fully did in the stairwell. But yeah, that whole plant wall, floor to ceiling plant wall, which again we have no idea how high the ceilings are, but that had to be 20 foot. And I don't know how wide that was, but that looked awful. It looked like one way to attract a bunch of insects to come in your house, and heaven forbid they actually lay eggs, and then all the stuff that's coming down. And I think Cole even mentioned his kids would be really rough on that. And I think that's valid. They said it comes with a health certificate. I don't know about this. I don't. That big of a plant wall anyway, I think is, I think Cole made a good point. It probably should not have been within reach, because if you were standing there, you could easily reach over the rail and pull on some of the hanging moss too.
And kids would just love to do that.
Sure,
you're right.
Sure, I'd be doing that, but a lot of kids, they would just play with it. And any kid there on the landing could be just sitting there picking away at the plants, and I don't know. And how do you fix say a bald spot? Say even maybe some of the plants die, and do you have to water them? I mean,
I don't really know what the irrigation situation is, and then I don't know. Like, if I had a plant wall in my house, it would die instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, for me to keep a plant alive for more than 6 months is a miracle. Yeah. So that would not be a good choice for me, because it would soon be a dead plant wall, which I don't think would be a feature anyone would want.
I don't think you get a health certificate. You get a different type of health certificate for having a dead plant wall.
But I do think it's a really good point that you're making, Stephen. If you're going to have a plant wall like that, and sometimes we'll see stuff like that on a $1 million listing, usually it's not in a heavily trafficked area. It might even be like, on a wall that you can't touch, or a wall that's maybe behind a glass partition. Right. To have it in a stairwell where people are constantly going to be up and down. And even if you don't have little kids, you're going to be carrying laundry baskets, suitcases, etc. These things could easily bump into the plant wall and disturb the plants. Mm-hmm. So I think even if you're a plant wall fan and you have a green thumb and you're not going to kill the plant wall, having it in some place that everyone's going to bump into it, whether they mean to or not, it may not be the best choice.
Yeah, I think they could have still had some of that and maybe put it across the middle or had a strip or, done something to break up, because it is a really high wall.
Yeah.
And,
maybe
not
like
floor to ceiling, but
maybe not floor to ceiling, but start at 4 or 5 feet off the ceiling and keep it inside of the boundaries, so it wasn't going out. So it almost was like a picture window frame of a plant wall type of thing.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
that would have been a lot more
make it look
practical.
like art instead of something that you're going to have to dust.
Yeah, because I also did think it was a little overwhelming. And I forget who said, maybe it was Chelsea, that the plant wall, she thought the plant wall was cool, but it clashed a little bit with the colors in the playroom.
Oh, it clashed with everything. I mean, it was so. It did not go with anything.
Yeah. Okay, so the playroom itself, I think Allison commented that she loved the color palette, and right before she said she loved the color palette, I wrote down in my book, love the color palette. So I guess I agreed with her on that. I liked the sort of green, gray tones that they used for it. It looked, accessible for kids, but it also didn't look like, hey, we've got a primary color room when you come on top of our stairs. So that was cool. But I have a couple of pet peeves this week.
Oh, pet peeves.
Pet peeves,
yeah,
yes.
We haven't had a lot of pet peeves in previous. So did they say that they were Ocean View?
Well, my pet peeve this week, Stephen, and this is always one of my pet peeves, is arts and crafts as part of design.
Yeah.
So they had the little mountain playhouse type thing that they did, which was a cute idea. But it looked to me very unprofessional. The mountains were cut very roughly. It kind of looked like maybe a kid made it themselves, but I don't think it was intentionally supposed to look like a kid made it itself. So I liked the design with the lights behind it and the fact that it was a fun little space for kids. But
and it had storage.
It just looked kind of tacky to me. I don't think I would necessarily want that in my home.
I don't know. They made a big deal of, I guess when they first cut it out, it had a point on it. And then they're but this is not kid friendly. And Tristan was very big on saying, whatever we do, we have to keep it away from the railings. And then what did they do? They had a rock climbing wall with a couple of stumps below it.
And no padding.
No padding. Then they had they called it monkey bars, but it was really a ladder, a climbing ladder that they had strung across, not monkey bars, but that's okay. We take, apparently they take poetic license with calling things wainscoting and monkey bars. I mean, I think, from a standpoint of what were they supposed to do, they're supposed to build a playroom. They did that. They accomplished. You did see that it was a playroom. They had the small furniture. They had a couple of places where adults could sit. That mountain cutout looked a little
tacky.
They said something about how there was a hidden room behind it, but I'm not sure how you have the hidden room back there if there's storage and how they're supposed to climb in there without knocking it all over. Because it was separated from the wall a little bit too. So the whole gist of that seemed a little contrived.
They needed a kid with a GoPro to model the inside of the little hidden area.
Yeah, that would have been good.
I
don't like that.
Yeah. But anyway, so, I mean, I like some things about it. I did like the color palette. And you're right. As far as like sticking to the theme, it was definitely a playroom, but didn't look like a sore thumb playroom that was misplaced in the house. So.
And then you could go over to the stairwell and grab some moss and throw it at your people. So
my God. Could you see kids? They would grab that moss and have a moss fight and throw it at each other.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. The juniors in my high school would be all over it. That moss wall wouldn't stand a chance.
Wouldn't last a day. Yeah, so that's kind of, the playroom with a non-playroom type feature near it, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about the whiniest team of the week. Well, wait a minute. Before we talk about the whiniest team, I guess I'm hearing from our production assistant that we need to take a break.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back with the whining in a minute.
Is that whining and dining, or?
I don't know, but I could probably use a glass of wine. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm ready for dinner.
So what team do you think I'm referring to when I say the whiniest team of the week?
It's got to be the paint it black.
Yes.
I mean, that's their mantra, right?
Oh, they don't know tech, they don't know gaming, and this does not fit in Cowboy Contemporary.
No, and they should just arm wrestle, and he could out-arm wrestle anybody. Getting a little bit tired of all of his comments like that. I mean, obviously, he's the biggest guy there, but
yeah,
having done a little bit of discussions with people that have been in arm wrestling competitions, the shorter your arm, the less strong you have to be. So he's pretty big. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll never know.
We'll never know.
They didn't let him live his dream of arm wrestling.
He also threatened to knock down the rock the drop thing if he didn't get what he wanted. So grow up. I mean, I know he's trying to be funny, but I don't know.
Well, anyway, I think they really need to lean into the contemporary part of their Cowboy Contemporary and not the cowboy part, because any contemporary home in America is going to want to have tech. I mean, people love tech, right? And having a gaming room or a tech room, if you have kids, they love technology. They're going to want to do it, whether they're teens or even young kids. They're going to love playing on their PlayStation or whatever. So, I thought the whining was a little excessive.
Well, it's weird too, right? Because doesn't she consider herself to be an influencer, and she's been on TV shows, and them whining about the tech. That did seem a little overboard, and then all the teams were kind of making, we don't know tech, we don't want tech, nobody wants tech. And then at the end, what Michelle said, this looks like if I were at a technology company, the employee room would look just like that. And I'm like, well, if you don't know tech, how would you know what an employee company would have for a break room?
Yeah, but working at Microsoft, he isn't wrong. Our bake rooms did look quite a bit like that.
Well, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying you whine all the time about how you don't know tech, and then you're talking about what a tech company's break room would look like.
Well, apparently they figured out the secret to tech, because they discovered that LED light strips equal tech. As soon as they got the LED light strips, they're like, now we're tech. So it's good to see them embrace that.
Yeah, but what did they do with it? They had the lights hanging down in the middle of the curtain. This room was a disaster, frankly. I mean,
I think it was that bad.
Well, okay. I mean, in general, just looking at it, I think aesthetically it looks fine. But, having being touch of a gamer myself, and having an office where I have a window not as close as the window behind the monitors, but if the sun is bright, I have to close the curtains because the sun comes in over my eyes. So you've got the monitors there with the gaming chair with a big window with no curtains. So I'm like, well, this is the dumbest arrangement possible for somebody that's actually going to want to game. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, no, there's no way, unless you're gaming at night, which not all gamers all game at night. Some gamers actually game in the day. No, but you couldn't do it without having put some window treatments on it.
Well,
so
they had those long green drapes on the other windows, which didn't scream cowboy or gaming to me. So I'm not quite sure where they were going with that.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just okay. So you're with me on that. And then there's some TV with the pixelated Rock the Block.
Okay, that was cute. The pixelated Rock the Block, but I'm sure somebody gave that. To them.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they didn't come up with that. I mean, they had 48 hours. No way.
Yeah, people were raving about it. And then on their staircase treatment, I forgot to mention, they did paint their built-in black.
Yeah, the built-ins were black. She's like, I'm thinking a neutral color. Oh, black. Duh. Shocker. Chelsea painted something black. What she didn't paint black, back to the stairwell, the tambour. They reused the tambour in a couple of places, the stairwell, and then they also used it kind of as paneling behind the desk with
I thought
that
looked
monitor.
Good, actually.
I thought that looked good. Yeah, painting the tambour black matched the black cabinets, which
matched the black railing,
the black railings, the black chairs, the black carpet. I mean, so the stuff that they got from that container was black, so that was nice reuse, but the thing was that I think that in the stairway, they should have painted it something other than white. Because
like a contrasting color of
yes, or a complementary color that, having the tambour and just, kind of, they did it the right way, right? They just had like this going up the middle. It didn't fill up the entire space. It was just a feature part of this really tall wall. So they broke it up nicely. I think the tambour did a really nice job with that. But I think it needed to be a different color, a tan or not black. I think black would have just been too stark. But
I'm shocked that they didn't paint it black.
It's kind of I know. We started watching the show again, and I'm like, I don't think they painted it black. I can't remember. That must not be remembering that right. And they didn't paint it black. The skull, the elk head skull. Whatever.
That's their deal.
That's their deal. Yeah. As it fits into, I guess if you're a cowboy, you've got skulls, which I'm not exactly sure that's true. You would, I don't know, but that's the symbol of cowboy. So actually, if the skull wasn't there and they had maybe painted that something else, I think they had the best staircase.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Except for the two things they didn't do.
Except for that.
Yeah. I mean, Tristan and Kamohai had the worst one, in my opinion.
It was certainly the least practical. And, we always include practicality in our judging here on Talk the Block. Yeah.
Right. And then, the whole how much does it cost to change? And, it looked like they were putting screws in that thing every 4 or 5 inches.
You'd have to hold it up.
Yeah. And so taking it out, first of all, you've got to get all the way to your ceiling and find the screws, get them out, pull it down.
It would be easy for me because the plants would be dead. The screws, you
know exactly where the screws were. Yeah, that's a good point. You wait for it to die, and then it's easier to take down.
All right. Well, hey, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be right back with the next team. Okay, Stephen, let's talk about Allison and Michelle. So they had homework, which everyone took literally to mean kids' homework. And I think they started by thinking they'd make a kids' homework area.
That's what they said to start with.
But it's just not who they are. It was not in them to make like a cutesy, kid-colored area. So they made a very sort of refined-looking second office that I suppose kids could do their homework in. But it did not look like a kids' area. Personally, I do kind of agree with Allison. That makes it more versatile. If you want to use it for kids' homework, you had all those shelves. You could put kids' stuff on the shelves. You could put posters up. You could make it look, and you could put different desks in and things like that to make it look more like kids. But if you'd gone with a very kid theme and you didn't want to use it for a kids' area, like you and I don't have kids, so we would not be thrilled if this whole room was just very super kids theme. So I think it did kind of make the house more versatile. But that doesn't mean it was necessarily the best design.
Yeah, they so in the Plinko thing, they went third, and at that point, the only things that were left was the homework and the gamer, and then they did not want the gamer.
Nobody wanted the gamer. Yeah.
I think for me, looking at the $25,000 worth of crap, that container probably actually had things in it that was worth having. They had I don't know how nice the gamer chair was, but they had all those LED lights and monitors and stuff. And so I think that, they actually had some components in their container that actually would be worth something. And, the thing of it, they didn't like getting homework because they already had an office. And so they're like, okay, initially Allison said, well, this will be the kiddie office. Well, again, everything they did around the walls would be appropriate for any type of office room that you had, kids' room or whatnot. All they needed to do
is make it a library, really.
Or you make it a library, yeah. All they needed to do was to make a smaller table. And they got dinged for having one big table. Jonathan said he thought he was there for a design consultation, and somebody else said, "Oh yeah, we would both have to be working there." And and if you've got a couple of kids, I mean, everybody says everybody in Utah's got 14,000 kids, right? They could all be around the table doing the homework together.
Yeah, a lot of kids work like that around the table.
You have friends over, you're working on. So I don't have a problem with it being a big table.
Yeah, you know what? I think you have a really good point. I think this was a staging flaw, right?
Yeah,
because
right.
I think the shelving and the built-ins they did were very neutral. You could do anything with them, and they could have just done like a younger, kidder-looking table, or done multiple tables so it looked more like kids' homework, and then the stuff they put on the shelves could have been more evocative of kids doing homework. And I think that would have changed the whole tenure of the judging.
Yeah. And some reason, I think both Chelsea and Cole and Jonathan didn't like the color of the built-ins, which Jonathan said it made him nauseous, which I don't. I mean, okay, fine. So a color makes you nauseous. It doesn't mean that it's a wrong color, right? I mean, you're supposed to be judging the design effects of it, not just how you feel about a particular color. You may not like the color. That doesn't mean the design's wrong, right?
Well,
so I think that was an unfair criticism. I think it was smart since they had the bookshelves that didn't have backing to paint the wall the same color as the trim, so it did look very cohesive. I think they did really nicely there. But yeah, I think, but to your point, I think they probably could have just lost this on staging. But I don't think they were going to win anyway.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I think the staging didn't help them.
No,
and I think Michelle was probably really hurt by Jonathan saying that color made him vomit, because Michelle loved that color. And in fact, the color they did on their shelves on their wall is almost the exact color of the jacket that he wears all the time.
Yeah.
So it's pretty clear
so
he loves that color.
The paint. Here, I want something this color. Well, if he was going to not like something, it would be Jonathan. What Jonathan said, what did he said? They were talking about they were talking about being all that art. So I guess Michelle spent quite a bit of time pretending
arts
to be
and crafts
doing
again.
Arts and crafts, and what Jonathan said, he felt assaulted by all of the art. And just from maybe they actually didn't do a lot of the work in that room, and since a lot of it was putting up the built-ins, they weren't the ones doing that, and then staging the stuff. So maybe they didn't spend a lot of time, and so therefore Michelle had free time. He said, "Well, I'll just make some art," and I don't think that necessarily was bad, but I do think it was a lot of art. I think that was a good call out by Jonathan.
It was a lot of art. I mean, there may have been more things that Jonathan could have been using that time. Maybe he did
Michelle.
one piece and then they used Wayfair for other pieces or something. But I think that my biggest point would be, unless you're like Picasso or somebody, art that you create, the 8 art pieces that you create between 2 in the morning and 7 7 in the morning are probably not going to be something that's going to be super stunning, right? So he did all this large form art, which takes time, and it was pretty simple, and it wasn't like it was hideous. I certainly have seen worse art, but it also wasn't anything that looked like, wow, that art is fantastic. It was just like big palettes of color on the wall that I would almost take to be placeholders for art that I might like better that I would put on the wall.
Yeah, and when I got to looking at it, we saw him doing some stuff. It didn't actually. I don't think the 4 larger pieces. I'm not sure he did. Because it did look different from what he was doing, and it did look rather complicated. So maybe some of it was what he did and some of it wasn't. And but yeah, it was 10 pieces. He said he had done 7 in the interview. He was hoping to get to 12, but I did count 10 on the wall. So I don't know how many of them he actually did.
Yeah, and I think they're the only ones that didn't do anything of like permanent value on that wall. Like you had the plant wall, for better or for worse, that's a thing. You had the timbre, and then we haven't got to it yet, but Jonathan ended up doing like a herringbone wood pattern on his wall. They did art which is easily to take off and remove or replace, but which is nice if you have your own specific taste as a homeowner, but also it's not adding any value to the property.
Yeah, right.
You know?
So all that time he spent doing that didn't add any value to
exactly.
Maybe creativity. They could have gotten creativity points this week, but it's not going to add value in the overall appraised value, which is what they're supposedly being judged on.
So again,
a lot of work for nothing.
Yeah, these arts and crafts projects do not add appraised value, and I know you get these people on here, and he is an artist. He went to art school. I mean, I'm not saying he can't paint. And what was it?
Well, he went to art school for design.
No, Keith is also an artist that we had last year who spent a lot of time on arts and crafts projects, and it's just, is that the best use of your time in 48 hours that you have to complete a space?
And when they've got a week and you want to do a couple of custom art pieces, that's one thing. But yeah, if you've got 48 hours and you're talking about how you don't have time to sleep and maybe you're not making the best decisions, maybe you ought to think about that when you're not making the best decisions and you're making art pieces in the middle of the night. So
yeah, and speaking of not making the best decisions, I wanted to say this at the beginning, but I forgot. Public service announcement. It probably is not a good idea to be using power tools when you are so exhausted you can hardly stand up. These people were constantly saying, "Oh, I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired," and here they are using a power saw.
Yeah.
And all I can think of is somebody's going to lose a thumb. I know it's coming. I know it's coming. So I would say, for your own home projects, probably being well rested when you use power tools would be a good rule of thumb. I don't know if you want to keep your thumbs.
Yeah, well, anything that has degraded your capacity, so if you had a couple of drinks, don't use a power tool. Even the shop teacher in that great movie UHF by Weird Al Yankovic, even though he was a shop teacher, he cut his thumb off using a table saw. So
it can happen to anyone.
It can happen to anybody. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well,
got my UHF reference in. I am so excited about this.
This is your day.
Yeah, I know.
This is your day.
That is like one of the best movies. If you haven't seen UHF.
You're intelligent and you're talking about UHF. What a juxtaposition. Okay, so with that, we'll take a little break. Okay, Stephen, we've got one more room to talk about, and that one belongs to Jonathan, not Jordan.
Nope.
At the beginning, Jonathan said that Jordan had to be gone for a couple of days. We had a staged phone call with Jonathan FaceTiming him, or Jordan FaceTiming him and saying how he felt about it, and Jonathan being stressed out. And Jordan's like, "Oh, I think I can help you." And then the next thing you know, Christina's calling, and she happens to have a couple of free days and
she's
happens
already
to be
there
in the house. Yeah.
Already in the house.
It was cute. It was a little contrived. It was nice to see Christina again, and I thought she really shaped up his thinking for that wellness room.
Yeah, I think she did a really nice job. I think who knows how much they had already figured this out coming in, or I guess they wouldn't have known they were going to have the wellness. So some of this, I guess, they had to do closer to production time, and that went pretty well. I thought it was kind of interesting that Christina, even though she showed up and helped Jonathan, she wasn't there in the judging, and I think they just wanted to keep her. And it seemed like nobody else knew she was there. So
Michelle, when they got their stuff out the Wayfair truck, Michelle said, "Hey, it's great to see you, Christina," or something like that, because they competed in the same season.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, right. So Michelle said, "Can we just take what we want?" And Christina goes, "Oh, that's not how this works." Thanks, Mom. But so she was there. I think that they did a pretty good job of realizing the wellness retreat. Yeah.
Yeah, I really think they probably were the second place winner this week, because the whole way it was judged was how well you brought the theme to life. And I thought they really brought the theme to life. It did look like a spa area. I'm not usually one for these gimmicks, but I thought the backlit Himalayan salt was really cool. It did give you that spa relaxing feel. And I like the built-ins. I'm not a big fan of tea, which seemed to be Jonathan's big idea. We have a tea station. But anyway, there was a tea station there. And I think the only thing that was disconcerting about their space, and I think a couple of teams called this out, is that the wood they used for the wall on the staircase and the wood they used in the relaxation room did not match the flooring. So you had the gold brown tones of the flooring and you had sort of the peachy tones of the other wood. And I really think if they had done a better job matching the wood, that
or
they
not matching.
Or not clearly not matching, doing something different enough that it looked different. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as far as making their container come to life, I think they did the best job. I think, and everybody talked about how they walked in there and they relaxed. It seemed to me, they kind of dinged the color a little bit, but they had a built-in shelving system, but they didn't have storage. So it seemed like what the other teams, if they knocked it down, which I'm not sure they did, there might have been a production assistant out there knocking down a point or giving a point, because I really think it was kind of in the cards for Team Aloha to win.
Conspiracy theory here.
Yeah, but I think that's where they kind of got dinged, that there was no place to store anything.
The storage
which I think's
and the
fair.
color.
I think that's fair. Yeah. The color, it was a little too matchy, but didn't match, right? Which is a bad place to be.
And exactly. It was just enough that it jolted you, right? If they would have used like a darker wood that clearly wasn't meant to match,
darker, lighter, something. I was not a fan of them putting that. They called it wainscoting again, but the paneling. Actually, they did it in a herringbone pattern.
I thought that looked cool.
I still think it was a lot. Because it went floor to ceiling.
Better that than the plant wall.
Better than the plant wall. Yes, I agree. Better than the plant wall. And I guess they were using stuff they already had. To me, it was just a lot of that one color. I just think it was a lot.
But you think spa, you usually have like very soft color palette and not a lot of color. So I thought it worked for me. It really did look like someplace you would go for a spa.
I thought they did a really good job. I thought they should have won.
Yeah, I thought it was good too. I honestly thought they were going to win. And Michelle and Allison loved their space, but you can kind of see that's more to Michelle and Allison's taste, But yeah, Michelle gave him a slow clap there.
Oh, well, he was being facetious because of the criticism that they had received. Remember, Allison and Michelle got to go first on hearing the feedback.
The vomit and the assaulting are very, very tough criticism.
Well, I guess the other thing to call out is that Jonathan did get to go second in the Plinko, the rock the puck, or whatever it was called.
Drop the block.
Rock the drop. Yeah, so he got to go second, and he wanted the wellness, and he got it.
Yeah.
So it was interesting that the first two teams that went actually called their shot.
It didn't seem to be as Plinko-y as those Plinko things usually are. If you kind of dropped it over the spot, it was going to land near that. Yeah,
but then Cole and Chelsea went third, and he was really trying not to get the gamer, and instead he should have gone to the other side, so they had 6 places it could land, and the leftmost, looking at it, was you missed a turn. And so then homework was first, and then Playroom Wellness, and then the Gamer Tech. But then on the other side, the far side, was you get to pick whatever's available. So he should have been going for that spot, because the downside is they missed their turn. They lost their turn, and somebody else got the Playroom, so they wound up with Gamer Tech. So I think that was bad strategy on his part. Yeah. If there's a team that I think is going to have great strategy, it's that team.
Ha. So anyway, speaking of that team, Cole's criticism of the relaxation room was, when I think of relaxation, I think of fitness. You should have some balls or some yoga mats or something. And I don't think it would have been, it might have been nice to have like a basket there with some yoga mats or something. That would have been thematically. But it was clearly not a gym area. Maybe something that would evoke yoga might have been a nice touch.
Yeah, the mats and some place to sit down and stretch and all that kind of stuff. I think that was a fair point.
I think so too.
Was, not that what they did needed to be expanded on, but I think it was a fair comment that they could have had this too.
Yeah.
They probably still wouldn't have won because they didn't have any built-in storage, but which is what I think in the end was if the contestants really did rank and that's really how it came out, then that is where they lost it, in my opinion. Now, I don't believe any of that.
All right.
And what I saw online, people's comments thought the wrong people won too.
Yeah.
I
didn't see the online comments. Were they also going for the relaxation room?
I didn't actually read the articles. I was hunting for something else. I was trying to figure out where Cole and Chelsea spent their $3,000 back in whatever in week 3, and was having trouble figuring that out. Even rewatching the episode, had trouble finding that out. So I was doing searches, and what kept coming back was the titles. Wrong team wins again.
Yeah, well, I did think I don't think I would have given it to Team Aloha this week. I just had too many issues between the rock wall and the sort of clumsily made mountain scene there.
Yeah.
I didn't hate the space as a playroom though, but I think the space I would most want in my house would probably be Jonathan and I'll say Christina's, since Jordan wasn't there.
Yeah. Even though there was nothing farmhouse about it.
Well, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, no bale of hay in your spa.
Well, there's nothing to say that every room in your house has to adhere to whatever theme it is you put down. Yeah.
Exactly. Everything doesn't have to have both of those components, but the way some of these teams talk, I have to do this because we're cowboy contemporary. We have to have cowboy hats every room,
I'm surprised
or whatever.
there
all
was
the
no
teams
cowboy
seem to
hat
be doing this.
Chelsea and Cole's, yeah.
No, you don't have to do this in every room. So yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, well. Well, anyway, so the team that won was Team Aloha, Tristan, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, Kamohai, yeah, okay. And so they were really happy because it was their first win, and they were getting all depressed because they hadn't won yet. So now, at least on this year, every team has won one, and it's going to come down to the final 3 weeks to see who is the big winner, at least in terms of number of episodes won.
Yeah.
And next week, it looks like they're going to do the basement, and it looks like there's a full basement in this place, which is going to give them lots of opportunities to be creative.
Yeah, there's all of the rooms supposedly, they kind of list out, if you take a look at the season overview, you can see it up there. The multifunction lower levels with show-stopping additions like a pickleball court, cold plunge and sauna, theater, and wine room. So that's next week. It's really nice when they do the other judges include, and they actually put them in the order that they're showing up on the show. So, nice. Whoever is it, Kim Miles from Battle on the Mountain will be the judge next week. We don't know that show. It seems like kind of an interesting pretext. They have 3, I guess, mentors that get three teams or 3 couples or 3 sets of people, and they renovate rundown mountain homes, and then there's a and then there's a winner. So that's just a description. So it's kind of like, wow, They can make a show about that, huh?
Well, they can make a show about anything,
I
Stephen.
guess so, yeah. So that's her most recent thing. I think she had done a couple other things, but yeah, she's the judge next week on the multifunction lower levels.
Multifunction lower level. Oh, I can't
the single function lower levels are not going to be included.
No, if you're single function, you're not winning. Yeah. No, but I love these because they can do so many creative things. So they had something similar to this in Colorado where they had a huge basement.
Right.
And we had all kinds of creative ideas. And so I think this could be really fun because people can go anywhere they want. Not quite sure about the pickleball court in the basement, but, who knows? They love it, right?
Yeah, I guess the nice thing is it doesn't take up a lot of room. And as they've proved on this show, it can get cold really quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they were freezing at the beginning of this one.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm looking forward to next week's episode. Again, we apologize for being a little bit late this week. But I think next week, I'm crossing my fingers. I know I've said this before. We're going to be on track and we'll be able to deliver the episode to you on Tuesday next week. So let's cross our fingers we can do that.
Yeah, at least we're getting it out before the next episode, which I was worried one week. I think the first week, I wasn't quite sure we were going to be able to get it out before the second episode ran. But at least we're staying ahead of that.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, thank you everyone so much for listening. Please keep your feedback coming. We love it. And I guess until next week, this is Amy and Stephen signing off from Talk the Block.